Morning Spring, we bring you the best of information, starting with the newspaper reviews and analysis. Then, of course, we dive into critical issues, matters of importance. That's what we talk about here. If it really matters, then you get to hear it from us. And we say it as it is. That is our hallmark right here at Western Spring Television. Always a pleasure to have you join us once again. Thank you so much. We do sincerely appreciate you. Yes, you are distinguished viewers all over the world. We do not take you for granted because without you, we won't be here. And here we look at critical matters, like I said, and I know sometimes some of these matters, some of these issues might sound, controversial, depending on who you ask. Sometimes some people feel if it is not officially reported first, perhaps by the authorities, we should not talk about it. But as journalists, we are the fourth estate of the realm. So we talk about issues even before you start to see them on the pages of the newspaper sometimes. Some matters before they appear on the pages of the newspapers. We have sources, we get our information, and sometimes we just have to talk about them and not just wait for official statements like they say. Because sometimes everything is never as it seems. I hope you understand that. Thank you sincerely once again for joining us on Morning Spring on Western Spring Television. This is Nigeria, our nation. We love Nigeria. I'm a Nigerian. I'm in love with Nigeria, and I wouldn't trade my Nigerian citizenship, being a Nigerian, for anything else. I would always be a Nigerian. Despite all the challenges, yes, we have a lot of challenges in Nigeria. We're facing leadership challenges, leadership problems. Rest assured, we still have great people in Nigeria. We have very smart people in Nigeria, and one day we will get it right. We will elect the right leaders, have the right leaders in the right positions, those who will do the right thing. And of course, Nigeria will move forward. Talking about Nigeria, talking about investment, the National Bureau of Statistics just released a report which revealed that the FCT, that's the Federal Capital Territory, has surpassed Lagos in terms of attraction of foreign investment for the very first time. Lagos has always been number one. Lagos State, the center of excellence, has always been number one when we talk about attraction of foreign investment. But for first quarter of 2025, Abuja actually came first. That's the FCT, the Federal Capital Territory, attracting a total of about $3.04 billion. Whereas Lagos State, which has always come first, attracted $2.54 billion. That's for the first quarter of 2025. And that will be the first time Abuja is surpassing Lagos. Are we really having a shift right here? Is this just a one-off occasion? Let's just wait and see. If it persists, then that's when we can actually say that, oh, foreign investment is now shifting to the Federal Capital Territory. But for now, I think it's safe to say, well, maybe it's just a fluke. Yeah, perhaps it's just a fluke. Let's just say maybe some things happened. Some investors decided to focus on Abuja this time. But if it continues, then we can say, oh, the center of excellence might actually be shifting from Lagos to Abuja when we talk about business and foreign investments. Away from that, I hope the people of Lagos are just recovering from the flash floods that took over Lagos yesterday. A lot of businesses were grounded. A lot of people couldn't leave their houses because of the flood. It's raining here also, but we do not have such floods right here. This is Osogbo, the capital of Osun State. Thank you once again for joining us. We'll take a short break, and when we return, we go straight to the newspaper headlines. Join us again.
Our comedy is winning fans globally. But we are losing our wildlife to illegal bushmeat. And this is not funny at all. If we continue this way, we'll risk losing all our animals and leaving nothing behind for the generations to come. Tell your family and friends not to buy or sell illegal bushmeat because protecting nature protects us all.
I am Josh Too Funny. I'm a comedian and I like to make people laugh.
Fly up!
But it's not funny that we're losing our unique gorillas. We only have around 100 left and they are threatened by habitat loss and traps set for bushmeat. So please say no to illegal bushmeat because protecting nature protects us all.
The Berlin Conference of 1884 defined the configuration of Africa, which hitherto existed as a continent of multiple kingdoms and empires under native rulers. The conference otherwise referred
Thank you for staying with us. The newspaper headlines are here, and we go straight to the front pages of the Nigerian dailies. We start from the front page of the Punch newspaper this morning. On the Punch newspaper, FG warns of 5-day flooding in 19 states. Federal government warns of 5-day flooding in 19 states. Quite interesting, talking about nationwide alert. I was just talking about the flood in Lagos yesterday. Now the federal government is warning of 5-day flooding in 19 states. And I do hope they are taking the necessary steps to mitigate the effects of the flood. It is not enough to warn. What are we doing to make sure people are not put in, dire conditions? I hope the emergency agencies are on their toes right now to make sure that people are safe. If you need to evacuate some people in some states, and that should be done. Below that, we have a rider. Rainfall flooding forecast for Tuesday, Saturday. Flood hits Ogun, Gombe. 2025 flooding kills 191, 94 missing. Quite unfortunate. 191 killed and 94 missing. It's talking about flash floods right here in Nigeria. You can read of that story on page 2 of the Punch newspaper this morning. Away from that, presidential jet gulp 26.38 billion naira in 18 months. Presidential jets gulp 26.38 billion naira in 18 months. You find that story on page 27. CBT fears surge after decade worst WASC results. CBT fears surge after decade worst WASC results. Talking about a computer-based test for the West Africa Senior School Certificate Examination. There are concerns. I also raised that here on the program yesterday, that when students who have not been exposed to computers, when they are made to take the examinations using this technology, it might really affect their performance. Just imagine a student who has never operated a system before, a computer system, having to write an examination with a computer system. And I was saying here yesterday that no matter how smart that student is, it will affect their performance, because when you take a fish out of water, it's not easy. I think it's the responsibility of the government to make sure that the students and schools are well equipped for them to practice and train, so that when WAEC release their results, we won't be complaining that, the students have been shortchanged because of the technology. I do hope that is resolved. You'll find a story on page 3 of the Punch newspaper this morning. Away from that, 2027 elections. Atiku Obi reject controversial party registration bill. 2027 election. Atiku Obi reject controversial party registration bill. You'll find a story on page 2. Talking about controversial party registration bill. Recall that a lot of organizations have actually submitted letter of intent to be registered as political parties in Nigeria. The last time I checked, I think we have around 140 or thereabouts who have submitted their letter of intent to register as political parties. So many of them. Now, top politicians like Atiku Abubakar and Peter Obi are saying that the party registration process might not be, so favorable, might be a little controversial, and they are rejecting that. So let's just hope that it's resolved. You'll find details of that story on page 2 of the Punch newspaper this morning. Away from that, FG inaugurates national MSME grants clinics in Akure. Federal government inaugurates national MSMEs grants clinics in Akure. That's talking about the Ondo State capital, Akure, right there. Below that, on the bottom strip, first hold code to dispose shares after Otudeko's exit. First hold code to dispose shares after Otudeko's exit. You find a story on page 27. 60-year-old Nigerian found dead with stab wounds in UK flat. 60-year-old Nigerian found dead with stab wounds in UK flat. Quite unfortunate. You can read up that story on pages 4 and 5 of the Punch newspaper this morning. A 60-year-old Nigerian allegedly stabbed to death, found dead with stab wounds in a UK flat. That's what you call a homicide. Let's just hope the UK authorities look into that to unravel the mystery behind that unfortunate incident right there. And I also hope the Nigerian Commission right there, our diplomatic mission, would also take it up to make sure justice is served. Here's a Nigerian who has lost their life, and we should get to the bottom of it. Away from that, still on the front page of the Punch newspaper this morning. Banking booms with $3.1 billion foreign inflows in 3 months. Banking booms with $3.1 billion foreign inflows in 3 months. You'll find that story on page 28. Quite interesting. Nigerian banks are doing so well. We've talked about it here, attracting so much, investment, foreign investment. The other time, Zenith Bank was announced as one of the best performing banks. So these banks are really doing well for themselves. But the question again is, how are you treating your customers, your Nigerian customers? Are we having the best of services? We talk about multiple charges, multiplicity when it comes to duplicity rather, when it comes to, charges, bank charges. So far, the banks are smiling to the bank, as they say, they are making so much profits. Let's just hope these benefits trickle down to the average customer. Every customer counts. And I do hope we get better banking services in Nigeria as far as the customers are concerned. That'll be all from the front page of the Punch newspaper this morning. Away from the Punch newspaper, let's take a look at the Daily Trust newspaper. On the Daily Trust newspaper this morning, Southern candidates Jonathan Obi, Southern candidates Jonathan or Obi, that's talking about 2027. Recall that on Monday, we had a conversation here, we had a topic here, will Peter Obi return to PDP? Quite an interesting conversation with critical stakeholders where we talked about the possibility of having Mr. Peter Obi join the PDP, returned to the PDP. I'll recall that he left the PDP in May 2022, joined the Labour Party, and of course was the presidential candidate for the Labour Party at the 2023 general elections, where he polled 6.1 million votes, even without any structures. Now there's another angle to the story. Some Northerners are actually rooting for former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, saying they would like to see him come back as Nigeria's president. But the analysts we had right here on the show on Monday are of the opinion that those people are just trying to, you know, how do I put it now? They call it distractions. Yes, that this is just a distraction, that Jonathan has never shown, he hasn't shown officially interest in coming back. But some people just want to distract Peter Obi, just to make sure they have someone like Jonathan coming back to run for the race. But one thing remains. It seems as though there is a growing consensus that the presidency should remain in the South, at least for the next 4 years after 2027. And rightfully so. The North had 8 years under the rule of President Muhammadu Buhari. So now we have the South. So the South should be able to have at least 8 years before we start talking about having a Northern candidate for presidency in Nigeria. And that is what exactly this is all about. Although this is not written in the Nigerian Constitution, 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended does not contain this. But this is just a gentleman agreement between the North and South to say that let's have power rotation. If the North, you know, should have it for 8 years, then let the South have it for 8 years, just for the sake of balance. And we do hope that we respect this gentleman's agreement. Anyways, Mr. Peter Obi has said he needs only 4 years to transform Nigeria. That is his own argument. Let's just hope and he keeps his word, and let's hope it all plays out well. May the best man win the race. Away from the banner headline, we move to the top strip now. Zanfara Bandits abduct 150 persons in 4 days. Zanfara Bandits abduct 150 persons in 4 days. You can find that story on page 33. Talking about the insecurity, security challenges in Zamfara State. Quite unfortunate. We will look into that in the course of the program this morning. We understand that a top bandit there actually made attempts to make peace by releasing some captives. But unfortunately, we are still having these incidents. Recall that last week as well, we talked about this. When some people were allegedly murdered by bandits, they were kidnapped, they got ransom, they were paid ransom of about 50 million naira, and they still proceeded to slaughter about 38 of the kidnapped victims. And the British High Commission in Nigeria actually raised that, they kicked against that, condemning the action. That happened in Zamfara State as well. Now we are having 150 persons abducted in the same Zamfara State. What exactly is going on here? Like I called out the NSA the other day, that's the National Security Advisor, Malam Nuhu Ribadu. Please look into this. You keep telling Nigerians that everywhere is safe, that Nigeria is safer than ever. 150 persons kidnapped again. I don't think they are making all these stories up, do you? Malam Nuhu Ribadu. Away from that, I'm moving to other stories, still on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Remi Tinubu donates 4.15 billion naira in 7 months. Remi Tinubu donates 4.15 billion naira in 7 months. That's talking about the First Lady, Nigeria's First Lady, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, making donations to some people. Recall that she donated about 1 billion naira to the victims of the Benue attacks, the infamous Benue attacks that claimed over 100 lives, which a lot of people condemn. She donated 1 billion naira to the victims. And in total, we understand she has donated 4.15 billion naira in 7 months. Quite impressive. Away from that, Cargo clearance costs to rise as customs begin 4% levy collection. Cargo clearance costs to rise as customs begin 4% levy collection. You find a story on page 23. Mother, 5 children killed in Katsina building collapse. Mother, 5 children killed in Katsina building collapse. That's quite unfortunate. You find a story on page 18. Recently we've been having a lot of building collapses in Nigeria. Quite unfortunate. When buildings like this collapse, sometimes it's as a result of the use of substandard materials. Aging structures, not being properly vetted by structural engineers. Then after a while, we see these buildings coming down. Now we have another building collapse in Katsina State, where a mother and 5 children were unfortunately killed. That's not a good one. You can read up that story on page 18 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Away from that story, below that, we have another one. How 3 Yobe teenagers emerged victorious in world competitions. How 3 Yobe teenagers emerged victorious in world competitions. You find the story on page 12. A particular teenager from Yobe State actually came tops in an English competition, beating several other countries. Quite impressive. You might want to read up that story on page 12 of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Below that, Sudan hit by world's worst hunger crisis. Sudan hit by world's worst hunger crisis. And that's coming from the United Nations, the UN. You can find that story on page 26 of the Daily Trust newspaper. And right there, the inside, you can see the picture, Executive Director, Mr. Henry Urch, and some other officials right there, together with the D Tigress captain. Let's talk about Amy Okonkwo, the President, MBBF, and some other dignitaries, recognizing and celebrating the D Tigress on their victory. I recall that we congratulated them here, right here on the program, when they made history by winning the AfroBasket Championship 5 times in a row, making Nigeria the first nation to achieve that feat. So once again, congratulations to the D Tigress, just like we also congratulated the Super Falcons. It seems the ladies are doing Nigeria proud. What are the men doing? Men, dear Nigerian men, what are you doing? The ladies are, making the nation proud. Congratulations once again to the ladies. And on the bottom strip of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning, 22 persons killed in Niger auto crash, I beg your pardon. 22 persons killed in Niger auto crash. You can find that story on page 5. That's an unfortunate traffic accident right there. 25 persons killed, 22 rather, killed in Niger auto crash. That'll be all from the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Next, we take a look at the Guardian newspaper. We move next to the Guardian, to the front page of the Guardian newspaper this morning. Concerns over new customs levy. Weak imports as car ownership turns luxury. Concerns over new customs levy. Weak imports as car ownership turns luxury. To own a car in Nigeria has become a luxury because the cost of importation has skyrocketed. Prices of cars have skyrocketed. Talking about used cars and brand new cars, it's more of a luxury right now to own a car in Nigeria. Below that, we have importers take advantage of additional charge for price gouging. That's quite unfortunate. You find a story on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper this morning. And also on the front page of the Guardian newspaper, we have the NBS, that's the National Bureau of Statistics. Foreign trade data shows the trend in value of used vehicles imported. Now, in 2021, we have 617.48 billion naira. That's the value of cars imported, used cars, used vehicles. That's coming from the NBS, the Nigeria National Bureau of Statistics. In 2022, we have 325.05 billion naira. In 2023, we have 1.47 trillion naira. Then in 2024, we have 1.26 trillion naira. Now, look at the sharp hike from 2022 to 2023. If you compare 325.05 billion naira to 1.47 trillion naira, the succeeding year, that's quite a huge one. The prices have skyrocketed, the cost of importation. And here we're talking about used vehicles. Quite unfortunate. The drop in the nominal value of imported vehicles reveals a little about the drop in imported vehicles. Of course, the real-term growth, I beg your pardon, might have fallen by over 50%, considering that the exchange value of the naira lost about 50% from 2023 to 2024. When the exchange value of the naira lost 50%, what do you think? Now, for instance, still on that display right there at the middle of the Guardian newspaper, a used 2006 Toyota Corolla vehicle cost between 6 million naira to 9 million naira, depending on the grade. That's unfortunate. The same vehicle sold for less than 3 million naira 3 years ago. Now, that's just the analysis. A used 2006 Toyota Corolla going for between 6 million naira to 9 million naira. And that same vehicle sold for less than 3 million naira 6 years ago. In fact, I know some people who bought used Toyota Corolla 2006 for 1.6 million naira just a few years ago. Now, for you to get it, you need to have between 6 to 9 million naira. And that's as a result of the state of the naira, our weak exchange rate. That is driving up prices and, of course, increasing cost of importation. Now we're having new levies, so the prices might even go higher. That's talking about importation of used cars in Nigeria. And below that, we see Toyota Corolla 2013 going for 13.5 million naira. That's in 2017. And then Honda Accord 2013 going for 13.8 million naira. Then we have Suzuki Presso 2020 going for 6.5 million naira. Suzuki Presso. Anyway, you might want to take a closer look at that analysis right there on the front page of the Guardian newspaper. Away from that, still on the front page of the Guardian newspaper this morning, investors raise stake in Nigeria with 5.6 billion naira capital inflows in Q1. Investors raise stake in Nigeria with 5.6 billion naira capital inflows in first quarter. You find that on business page 18. Recall that I started the program by saying that foreign investment into Nigeria has actually changed a little, with the FCT, the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, attracting $3.04 billion, while Lagos attracted $2.54 billion in the first quarter of 2025. A slight shift there, making the FCT coming first for the first time, surpassing Lagos for the very first time as the state, the region, the city with the highest foreign investment attraction. And in total, we have about $5.6 billion being attracted into Nigeria in the form of foreign investment. I think that's quite impressive right there. Below that, ADC leadership crisis deepens as INEC chairman withhold backing. ADC leadership crisis deepens as INEC chairman withhold backing. You can find that story on page 6. Still talking about leadership crisis. The ADC is the new coalition bride. And I'm afraid they might be having some leadership challenges right there. Let's just hope they resolve all that at the right time. Because right now we are talking about 2027, even though it's not proper for us, for politicians rather, to start campaigning. But that's the reality. Politicians and leaders are preoccupied with the 2027 general elections at this time. We do hope everything gets better, as they say. That'll be all from the front page of the Guardian newspaper this morning. Next, we take a look at the Vanguard newspaper. Let's take a quick look at the front page of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. We just finished with the Guardian, so let's take a look at the Vanguard newspaper. 2027, Obi single-term pledge raises dust. 2027, Obi's single-term pledge raises dust. Quite interesting. We also mentioned that at the beginning of the program when we talked about Peter Obi, who has pledged to spend only one term. He has argued that 4 years is enough for anyone. 48 months is enough for any good leader to transform Nigeria. Below that, we have riders saying a true leader can turn things around in 48 months. That's coming from Obi. That's Mr. Peter Obi right there. Labour Party presidential candidate for 2023. Its threat to 1999 constitution. That's coming from the PDP. Then we have its marks of desperation. That one is coming from Okore. Then we have another one. You can take Obi's promise to the bank. That's coming from Abaribe. You can take Obi's promise to the bank. Then we also have this one. One tenure is jolly. It's jolly but insufficient. That's coming from Imaswen. One tenure is jolly but insufficient. Then another rider right there. It's insult on our collective memory. That's coming from Buhari's aide. It's insult on our collective memory. Whatever that means, you might want to read up that story on page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. Here is one man who came out to promise that he needs only one term. He would serve only one term in office. And he has given the example of Abraham Lincoln, J.F. Kennedy, Nelson Mandela of South Africa. I'm saying that if they could do it in a single term, that he can also do it. That 48 months is enough for him. That's coming from Mr. Peter. But a lot of Nigerians, have started, raising eyebrows. Some are complaining. Some are saying it might be a sign of desperation. But the man is saying, hey, I know what I'm saying. 4 years is enough to transform Nigeria. And that is what Mr. Peter Obi is insisting on at this time. And some of his supporters are saying you can actually take it to the bank. That when he says, if he says he would do it, that he would do it. I think there's only one way to find out. Your guess is as good as mine. Away from that, sit on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. Atiku, Buni, others celebrate Nafisa, 17-year-old world best in English. Atiku, Buni, others celebrate Nafisa, 17-year-old world best in English. Quite interesting. You find that story on page 27. A Nigerian teenager emerging as world best in English. In all sincerity, I think we're trying in Nigeria. We're trying. If you travel across Africa, among the English-speaking countries, Nigeria is one of the best. I know Ghanaians listening to me will say that, no, Ghanaians speak better English. One thing about Ghanaian English is that the accent is really strong. The Ghanaian accent is extremely strong. They tend to, overemphasize on some of the syllables. So that's one thing with Ghanaian English. Then when you go to South Africa, they also have their own brand of English. Southern Africa, and when you go to Eastern Africa, they have their own brand of English as well. But we have the facts right here. Here we are, a Nigerian teenager coming best, a 17-year-old Nafisa, emerging as world best in English. Congratulations. Once again, another lady, another female doing Nigeria proud. And I'm asking, men, what are you doing? Quite interesting. Away from that, on the front page of the Vanguard news this morning. Church of Nigeria formally cuts ties with Wales over lesbian archbishop. Church of Nigeria formally cuts ties with Wales over lesbian archbishop. You find a story on page 8. Well, the Church of Nigeria has deemed it fit, to cut ties with the church in Wales over the appointment of a lesbian archbishop. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion. You might want to read up that story anyways on page 8 of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. Below that, APC governors rally around party chair. Iwatda dismiss opposition as non-existent. APC governors rally around party chair. Iwatda dismiss opposition as non-existent. You find a story on page 8 as well. If the APC is dismissing opposition, saying they are non-existent, well, don't be too confident. That might be a sign of overconfidence. If you say because you are the ruling party that opposition is non-existent in Nigeria, you might get a rude shock in 2027 when you dismiss opposition. Well, let's wait. Only time will tell. That's the APC's opinion, believing that coalition is opposition rather is non-existent. Let's see what happens in 2027. You might just be getting a rude shock in 2027. And on the bottom strip of the Vanguard newspaper this morning, we have I think we'll leave that out. Let's just take the comic section there, Mr. and Mrs. And right there we can see Mrs. saying, "What's wrong in applying makeup? What's wrong in applying makeup? I'm doing it to make myself more beautiful for you." And let's get the response of Mr. right there. Maybe you woke up this morning without makeup on the same bed with me. Did I complain? Quite interesting. Mrs. is making up, claiming she's trying to look good for the husband. And Mr. is saying, well, you wake up on the same bed with me this morning without makeup and I didn't complain. So why are you applying makeup? That's just on a lighter note right there. Well, that'll be all from the front page of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. That also brings us to a conclusion of the newspaper review segment of the show. I think we have just one more. All right, let's take a look. Let's take a quick look at the Tribune. This morning. On the Nigerian Tribune this morning, Abuja overtakes Lagos as top investment destination in Q1. I talked about that at the beginning of the show. Abuja overtakes Lagos as top investment destination in first quarter, talking about our first quarter of 2025. Recall that I mentioned that Abuja attracted a total of about $3.04 billion, while Lagos came second with $2.54 billion in terms of foreign investment. So for the first time, Abuja is overtaking Lagos. And recall that I said this might just be a fluke unless it happens again. For now, let's just believe it's a fluke. And let's hope they achieve that feat again. That's when we can really say Abuja has overtaken Lagos, because Lagos remains the center of excellence, as we say right here in Nigeria. And below that, we have Ogun, Oyo, Kaduna trail Lagos. You find details of that story on page 6. As Nigeria's capital importation hits $5.64 billion. Quite interesting. You'll find out that story on page 6 of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. Away from that, Tinubu signs insurance industry reform bill into law. Targets $1 trillion economy. Tinubu signs insurance industry reform bill into law. Targets $1 trillion economy. Well, that's quite a huge one right there. If we can achieve a $1 trillion economy, that'll be great. That'll be great. We should do the right things. But a lot of critics have been complaining about the rate of borrowing. I mean, the borrowing spree by the current administration, incessant borrowings, despite the fact that subsidy was removed. We have subsidy removal. We are supposed to be saving more, but it seems we are borrowing even more. The current administration, we had a program on the show when we talked about it, the current administration has borrowed far more than what Buhari's administration borrowed in during the same period. Tinubu's administration has borrowed far more than what Buhari borrowed. And in total, what Tinubu's administration has borrowed in 2 years, it's getting close to what Buhari actually did in 8 years, talking about our debt profile, rising debt profile in Nigeria. And now the FG is talking about, targeting a $1 trillion economy. Let's just hope the economy is on the right track. Let's hope we do recover. Away from that, we have another story. Flood, 191 killed, 134,435 affected in 20 states. That's coming from NEMA. That's the National Emergency Management Agency. Flood, 191 killed, 134,435 affected in 20 states. That's coming from NEMA. You'll find a story on page 4. There has been warnings of flood in Nigeria. I just hope the emergency agency, NEMA, they are doing the right thing, like I said before, to mitigate the effect, the adverse effect of these flash floods in Nigeria. Away from that, WhatsApp bans 6.8 million scam-linked accounts. WhatsApp bans 6.8 million scam-linked accounts. You'll find a story on page 3. WhatsApp is a popular social media application in Nigeria used by many. We understand they've banned about 6.8 million scam-linked accounts. Quite interesting. It might also interest you to know that WhatsApp is banned in some countries. I recall having a conversation with a group of people at a conference. The ones from Egypt, from Syria, from Jordan, they don't use WhatsApp in their countries. So some nations, even in Africa, do not allow the use of WhatsApp. And of course, in the UAE, the last time I checked, you can't even make direct calls on WhatsApp. You can only send voice notes. Yeah. While I was there, you can only send voice notes. That's talking about the United Arab Emirates. You can make direct calls. I don't know if that has changed as far as WhatsApp is concerned. But thankfully, they are moving to ban scam-linked accounts. I think that's an impressive one right there. Below that, health. Under health, we have poor sleep linked to 172 diseases, including dementia, Parkinson, diabetes. Whoa, that's coming from a study. Poor sleep linked to 172 diseases, including dementia, Parkinson, diabetes. You find that story on page 13. How many hours should an adult sleep? How many hours of sleep should one get? That's an interesting question. Some people will say 6 hours is enough. Some others will say 8 hours is enough. But some people are getting just between 3 to 4 hours. And we understand it's not good. It may lead to dementia, Parkinson, and several other diseases. That's talking about poor sleep. Ability to lead to about 172 diseases. So you might want to try and get quality sleep always. And that'll be all from the front page of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. Thank you for joining us on the newspaper review segment. We'll take a quick break, and when we return, we dive into critical matters. You do not want to miss that. Join us again.
Can you imagine the feeling when you get your news as they break with facts and clarity?